Thank y'all. Good morning. Good morning. Once again, my name is Dwalyn Jackson. I'm a native of New Iberia, and just to kind of give you an idea of what I like to do, I like to play music. I've been playing music all my life. I began playing music in the fifth grade. My fifth grade band director, Mr. D. Hart, got me started. So if you, there may be a few people in here that may know Mr. D. Hart, but he was a real good guy from Vermilion Parish, Abbeville, and he did a great job of inspiring me. And then once I got to Anderson Middle School, Mr. Wilson, Thaddeus Wilson was the band director, and he just, sparked that interest. And then it continued all through high school. And of course, everyone knows Judge Porter, so I don't have to tell you anything about him. Um, Before we really get started, I'd just like to ask in the audience, who plays instruments in here? That plays instruments. All right. Great, 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 great. It's a great way to get your emotions across. You don't have to say it. You say it through your instrument. It tells you exactly, or it tells the person that's listening exactly how you're feeling. And just a quick plug: we have started the Bunk Johnson Creative Arts Academy, and if you are interested in becoming a member, please see me afterwards. We are definitely looking for musicians, and the musicians that we are encouraging, that they play instruments from keyboard, piano to guitar. I mean, if you play it, violin, we will teach it, and we'll take it to the next level. Right now, our focus is on instrumental music. Um, we're doing right now. We're focused on jazz, of course, definitely the Bunk Johnson style because that's kind of like our roots. And then eventually, we hope to branch off into creative arts, which would be dance and actual drawing. I couldn't get it out. Okay, so if you are interested, please see me afterward, or go to bunkjohnsonbrassband.org and go to the Creative Arts tab. From there, you can fill out an application. Right now, it's free, so there's no charge. So you actually get a musical experience for free. So this is a good time to jump on board. I don't know if we can maintain a free. Hopefully, grants will keep coming, but right now we're free. So if you are interested, once again, please get in touch with us. Okay, and just also, I am the one of the founding members of the Bunk Johnson Brass Band, and we do focus on second line music. But our slogan is music for all occasions. So we do play for banquets, we play for whatever. If you need it, we will play it. If we don't know the music, we'll learn it. And we have we have great musicians that, all I have to do is say, write the music out and say, here, play it, and we play it. So that's how we kind of um, keep our spirit, our music, and for all occasions going. Um, with the Bunk Johnson Brass Band, of course, I'm sure everyone's heard of second line music. If you've heard of second line, I know we have some people in here that's from New Orleans. I know Miss Louvier, who's from New Orleans, has a vast history. She was born and raised there, so she knows exactly what I'm talking about. And with the second line music, it's supposed to be a celebration. It's a fun time. Um, the first line, I'm sure that we always hear second line, but we never hear about first line. First line is actually let's say for a funeral, the first line would be when you're with the carriage, with the either the horse and carriage or with the hearse, and you're going to the grave site. And during that time, you are doing, it's a solemn song. It's kind of a somber moment because you're kind of disappointed in what's going on. So you've lost a loved one, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna kind of give you an example of what's played. Um, it's called a dirge. A dirge is, of course, like a funeral rite. So it's called a dirge. So I'll kind of give you an example of that. And I hope you've all heard this song. Oh, yes, old as I am, I still play a horn. Okay. So you can kind of hear like it's a somber moment. We are not having a, it's really we're sad because a person's has gone on to the next life. But they say in death it should not be. You should not mourn it. It should be a celebration because you're going home. So after you walk there to the funeral home and you've had that first line walk and you're not really happy. You're kind of mourning, and then afterwards I'll play the same song, but now it's going to be in a happy, fun mode. If you listen, you can feel people doing this. It's supposed to be a celebration. If you're going to celebrate, it doesn't sound like it. It sounds good. So it's really a fun time, and a lot of this music is all about you know playing the melody, but also doing improvisation of it. So when you say what's improvisation, all it is actually making the music, adding to it, playing what you feel, playing solos over it. And I always tell people a solo, there's no bad note in the solo because it's your solo. So even if you play the wrong note 15 times, it's the way you feel it. So it doesn't matter. Okay? So just to kind of give you an idea of what improvisation is, I'll give you an example. How many in here like rap? Okay. There you go. So how many like when you see somebody freestyle? Just you say, give me a word. I know y'all watch it on YouTube all the time, and they say, give me 5 words, and they'll rap and they'll use those words in it. Well, that's all improvisation is. It's making it up on a spot. So just to kind of give you an idea of what that would be like, also improvisation, because that's going to kind of lead into what Bunk Johnson and we're doing. I'm going to take a very simple melody. Everyone's going to know that. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to play a simple melody, and then I'm going to add to it, just so you can kind of get an idea of what it means. And you're going to know this song very easy. I know it's not cryptic, but this can't mind. Jingle bell. Very Christmas. I told everybody. But if I'm going to improvise on it, if I'm going to make it up later, I'm going to do something similar to this. I'm actually going to play parts of the melody, but I'm going to make some changes in it. So it'll be like. And then I throw it in. So that's just a quick little introduction to improvisation. And a lot of the music that Bunk Johnson did, of course, was improvisation. They played a basic melody, and then from there, they added to it. And a lot of times when they added to it, what was added was just fun, hopping music. I call it hopping. It was like nice and light and fun. Even though most of it was over the blues. Anyone's heard of the blues before? A 1-4-5-1 chord pattern, pretty much. So most of it was played over the blues. And when you're playing over the blues, you have what's called blue notes. Kind of you heard what I made this horn go. It's called growling. A lot of times you use that with those blue notes. But a lot of Bunk Johnson songs were played over the blues, and they were just a basic melody that was conformed. I don't want to talk too long. I want to give Judge Porter some time to speak, but what I'll do, eventually I'll play, before you leave, I'll play a Bunk Johnson tune. It's called New Iberia Blues. It's one that he wrote while he was living here in New Iberia, and it's a good one to know. A lot of people just really don't know about his music, but it's called New Iberia Blues.
Good morning. My name is Charles Porter again, and I'm here as the chairman of the Bunk Johnson New Iberia Jazz Arts Heritage Festival Incorporated. As was mentioned, around 1990s, we kept reading articles in the Daily Iberian of people visiting, usually from Europe, to find out, well, where is Bunk? Where did he live? Where is he buried? What did he do? Who did he play with? And we tried to find those answers as well. So we incorporated the nonprofit organization to do just that, as well as engage in festivals, music festivals of predominant mostly, because we all love music. We all love to dance. And music and dance, as well as we love food. So put all those three together, we will have a great time. So that's what the festival, Bunk Fest Festival, ideas were to celebrate Bunk Johnson in all of his wonder. Bunk Johnson was, I have here an album which is known as the Bunk Johnson Last Testament. This was the music that he produced just before he passed in 1949. And it's a wonderful set of music, and it's somewhat away from the New Orleans jazz music, more of music on theater music, and it's really wonderful. And if you have a chance to pick up on that music or hear it on YouTube or at some other source, it's really beautiful music, and it really his rendition of what he thought about that music. Bunk Johnson's life and times take us many places, particularly his hometown of New Orleans, where he learned to play music and learned to live a life as a professional musician. And from his start in New Orleans, he was a part of jazz, a new form of music that developed. New Orleans takes the credit for that. Of course, there are other places that take the credit for jazz as well. But at the turn of the century, a couple of centuries back, jazz was started in New Orleans and flourished across the country. And he was one of the, not across the country, but across the world. And so Bunk Johnson was one of the leaders of jazz, and everybody loved him to a degree, because now we have the word of debunk. And that developed in 1939, after creating music here in New Iberia and across South Louisiana. Louis Armstrong visited New Iberia on a tour of the area and presenting his music, and met Bunk, and later on returned to New York and spread the news that when he was asked who were some of the pillars of jazz, he mentioned Bunk Johnson, and he said he's down in New Iberia. So the great writers and those who were investigating the music came to New Iberia to meet Bunk, and they saw that he was a great musician, and he was taken eventually to New Orleans, and then to New York, and then all over the country, and all over the world. I don't know if he traveled all over the world physically, but his music certainly uh, traveled all over the world. So Bunk became someone well known in music and well known in New Orleans jazz. However, there was some dispute between he and uh, Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong was a child when Bunk Johnson was growing up. When Bunk Johnson was playing jazz in New Orleans, Bunk said he taught Louis how to play music. Louis said that was not the case, that he listened to Bunk Johnson's music and enjoyed it, but he learned to play music from others, from himself and other sources. The Everybody loves Louis Armstrong. He was one of the greatest musicians in the world, I would think. And so that dispute between Bunk and Louis Armstrong did not serve Bunk Johnson well, because Louis continued to rise in music across the world, where Bunk could only uh, rise in certain areas. But when you look at both of them, they were tremendous musicians. And today we, in New Iberia, in the organizations that we've developed, Bunk Fest and Bunk Brass Band, celebrate Bunk Johnson because of the music that he's provided us and the leadership that he's provided us in music. And we don't deal with the dispute. We love Louis Armstrong as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are engaged in an effort, a mission to continue to spread music of jazz and all music, and those who are connected to jazz. From New Iberia, particularly in southwest Louisiana. Bunk Johnson didn't play this music alone. There were bands that supported him and supported the community in music. And we also try to herald those people as well. So there's a lot we need to know about Bunk Johnson. And if you ever pick up the album, The Last Testament, check it out on YouTube. Before YouTube, there were liner notes that really give you a book on the back of the album of history about the artist and the music that the artist put out. You might not be able to get this album again, but the information is there on YouTube. Over 1998 through this year, the Bunk Festival has grown and has aged. We're 20 some years old now. And we got struck by COVID and kind of stepped back, and we're not engaged in any activity right now, but very shortly we will rise again. We'll give you an idea of what we're going to be doing, publish it in the Daily Iberian, and ask you to join us and be a part of Bunk Johnson and his life as a member of your community. And we hope you enjoy that and become a part of it. Normally, you'll see us at Shadows, by your Teche Museum, or anywhere down central business district of Iberia. So join us because it'll be a happy time.
And just to give you just a couple of fun facts, I'm calling fun facts, but a couple of facts about Bunk Johnson that I was amazed about. Of course, um, he was living on School Street. It was School Street right here in New Iberia, School Street, which is actually not too far from here. Um, for anyone in here, I saw a couple people say they played instruments. If you play a brass instrument, um, when Louis Armstrong told them about Bunk Johnson. Bunk Johnson was actually working at the Shadows right over here. That was his place of employment. And while working at the Shadows, he stopped playing his horn, of course, because his teeth were gone. And when they came to interview him, and then they brought him to start playing his music again, they actually had some false teeth made for him. And just I call it a fun fact because the teeth, of course, were made out of wood. So that's I always think that's interesting. So he worked right there, right across the way, not too far down the street, and he was actually able to play that trumpet with the wooden teeth, which is amazing to me. I couldn't imagine. I try to cherish these because I don't think I can make it with the wooden one. So I just thought that was amazing. And of course, once he got out there and played, it took him a while to get back. Just like every musician, if you don't play for a little while, it takes you a little while to build your chops up. But once they come back, you know, it comes back strong. And if you listen to that album, they came back strong. And to play those Gershwin tunes and stuff like that, it's a lot of on the face playing. And if you play a horn and you know that you keep that horn on your face constantly for a long time, especially brass players, mainly trumpet players, because of that little small mouthpiece, eventually your lips get tired. And I don't know if you've ever seen musicians doing it. That's because they're trying to get blood back into the lip. Once the blood is out of the lip, it's hard to play. So your air starts coming out from the side, and it's the trials and tribulations of playing a brass instrument. Um, I always say saxophone players can play all night, but we have to work. But it's worth it, though. It's worth it. So, I said I'd give you a demonstration of one of Bunk Johnson's tunes, so I'll go ahead and play one. This one's called the New Iberia Blues, um, and it's one of those tunes that he played both ways. He plays it. He'll play it slow sometimes on the bandstand, and then he'll come back later on and play it again. It's the same song, but it'll sound like a different song just because he's playing it faster. And in the 40s, when he was playing in the 30s and 40s, of course there was no R&B, there was no rap. That was the R&B rap of the time. So if you went to the place, you're not going to hear Jay-Z. You know, you hear Count Basie, those guys, Monk. All those guys that were headlining. Jazz was the in music at that time. So I'll go ahead and give you an example of the New Iberia Blues by Bunk Johnson. And then after that, the solo. So that's kind of that's kind of what they would do as far as play. They'd play the song, then they'd improvise and they'd extend the song, and then once they do the improvisation, they'd go back to the head and play the head and once again. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what the style of music was at that time, and the effects of it and how. And I don't know if you paid attention that they used a lot of different effects, like as opposed to going. That was just to add tension to the music, just to make sure that we are, that you're feeling what he's feeling. So if I'm in a blue mood, I'd play something like. Just some stuff, just kind of, and it sounds strange, but the instrumentalist is trying to convey his sorrow, his sadness. Whereas if he's happy, now all of a sudden I don't sound sad anymore. I sound happy. I sound like I'm having fun. And that's I always say music is a universal language. It's a universal language, and it grabbed me when I was young. And it's the only language that you can communicate with anybody in the world, and they can understand what you are saying, and that makes a big difference. You know, I can go up to someone that speaks a foreign language and say, "Hey, how you doing? Hello, how you doing?" If they don't know what I'm saying, it doesn't matter. You know, they're looking at me. I'm saying, "Hey, how you doing?" They're saying, "Cómo estás? ¿Está bien?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." Because we both are speaking a different language. But if I say it with my horn, they know exactly what I'm saying. I can take music, a sheet music, to any country in the world and give it to them, and they can play it. And that's why I always say music is the universal language, and it's the language that speaks to not just our hearts, our minds, our souls, but to our spirits. So, with that being said, then,
There's one other announcement I'd like to make about the facts of New Iberia and Bunk Johnson. We have a special Bunk Johnson collection at the New Iberia Library. Harold Drob and his wife were supporters of Bunk Johnson in the 40s and his concerts in New York and Pennsylvania and on the eastern part of the country. After his death and after the formation of our organization, they wanted us to have it, our organization, but we didn't have space for it. But fortunately, our public library has taken that collection, so there's no more ambiguity about Bunk Johnson. We have collections of thousands of pieces of information about him located in our community. So if someone asks you about Bunk Johnson, there's a place where you can research it. And not only this album, but articles in newspapers of that time, and the whole story about Bunk and Louis Armstrong, and when he went to Hollywood to be a part of a movie with Louis Armstrong. So Bunk had a real fascinating second life after he left New Orleans and came to New Iberia, and then left New Iberia and returned to New Orleans and the rest of the world. We'll open it for questions if you have any.
don't everybody jump up at once. Yeah.
No, they're a different collection, but I'm trying to get them to the library because I can't keep them at my house. But this is perhaps 3 or 4, 10 albums out of a couple of hundred of jazz music. And it was a collector who knew me, gave it to me so that I can give it to you, so to speak.
And one thing about an album for the younger people out here, um, you know, I can recall those days when I'd listen to those records at my parents' house, and I'd have to get a penny and put on top of the needle so that it wouldn't skip. But that's how I learned that's how I learned how to play music, listening to music. So if you are a musician and you have that desire to be a good musician, the best way to practice is to listen. You have to listen to music so you know what you're playing. If you just play and don't listen to music and just concentrate on sheet music, you're going to be a good musician, but you're not going to get to that next level of creativity. So you have to listen to others and find who you want to play or who you want to imitate. And then you imitate them to the best of your ability. And once you get them down pat, that's when you make it your own. So you put yourself into it. And once you put yourself into it, that's how you create your own style. But you have to have a basis. You have to start somewhere. And the best place to start is listening.
What do we know about how Bunk Johnson himself started playing music? What do we know about how Bunk Johnson himself started playing music? Who his teachers were, or who he listened to, or whatever?
Uh, well, fortunately, similar to Louis Armstrong, when Louis Armstrong was in he had done something, shot a gun on, yeah, so he went to a little detention facility where he learned how to play music and then got progressed from there. There was basically a tradition in New Orleans where those who were interested went to or played under someone who could teach them music. And Bunk had a teacher. The name doesn't come to me right away.
Buddy Bolden was the name. Buddy Bolden was probably the premier trumpet player of the time. Unfortunately, there are no recordings of Buddy Bolden playing, but Bunk Johnson did whistle the song for someone to write it, which was a Buddy Bolden song. So they I haven't played it in years, so I'm not gonna pull out my horn and play it for you. But it's a song that Bunk Johnson whistled. He actually whistled the tune, of course, at the time because he didn't have his teeth, so he did whistle the tune, and that's how they were able to write it down. And if you listen to any Wynton Marsalis um, stuff, he's at the Lincoln Jazz Center. He always say Buddy Bolden is the one. He said Buddy Bolden played so loud that it would tear down a wall. That was his claim to fame. He played extremely loud, and a lot of the musicians behind him tried to play it really loud. Ironically, Bunk Johnson was more of a quiet player. You know, he was a very good player, but he wasn't a blaring trumpet player. But like Louis Armstrong, he was very powerful when he played. Um, it's just Buddy Bolden is trumpet god right now, for lack of a better term. Oh yes, there are a ton. If you just type in Bunk Johnson on YouTube, I mean a lot of stuff's gonna come up. A lot of his music. There's actually a lot. I think there's a couple of live performances that actually are sure also. Go ahead.
St. Edward Cemetery. I used to know I'm sorry. Yeah, I know it in my mind, but I can't explain it right now. But it's towards the front of the.
Every year we do a jazz mass at St. Edward's Church, and we do a pilgrimage to the cemetery to his grave, kind of to pay homage. We do the first line, and then we do a second line back to the church. We do that every year. Um, if you were to go into St. Edward's Cemetery and go through the main gates, if you deciding to go there, I can kind of give you a visual picture as where to go. You're going to go down the main pathway, and you're going to come to a T. Just before you come to that T, if you're going down on the left side, the second row, I think it's the fourth grade. I think it's the fourth, but it's on the left side. So walk down the main pathway on the left. I think it's the fourth or fifth, somewhere in there. But there's a headstone on it. It's usually the weekend of Memorial Day, the Sunday before, the Sunday. Yeah, the Sunday of Memorial Day. And it's open to the public. Anyone, it's open. You can definitely come. Um, we usually play the brass band will play. We'll do songs because, like I said, we do music for all occasions. So we switch out, flip the switch, and then we play church music. And from there, we do the pilgrimage, the first line, and then the second line back to the church. Yes. Wi- William Gary Johnson. Yeah, he received the name Bunk because there was some. They said he told a lot of bunk, for lack of a better term. He told, he would tell some stories.
His first bunk note was that he was born in 1879, which some say put him in the right age to be part of the first jazz band in New Orleans. And then he kept going.
So we didn't know how old he really was. We didn't know his original birthday. And that's just part of bunk. So I guess I need to change my birthday. Right now I am 25 years old. I've been 25 for the last 25 years. And I guess next year I'll be 25 also. That's my bunk story.
Yeah, Bunk obviously kind of muddied the water, but that did not take away from his music. His music was very professional and up there. He was a very well taught and very well performed artist. We are blessed to have him a part of the New Iberia community.
Definitely. Any other questions? Yes.
Did he help with the Harlem Renaissance at all? Like anything around there? Or
I I don't think so. I'm really not. I really can't answer that. But he was here in New Iberia around, so I'm sure. I don't think he was a part of that era, that transition. Yes.
Do we know when he came to Iberia?
Um, I don't, in terms of the materials that I've read, before he was in South Louisiana, 19 during World War One, because he registered for the military in Lake Charles, and then the 1927 flood pushed a lot of people to the west, and he was with the family of the band members in Lake Charles, and then came back to the New Iberia area when everyone could. So after the 27 flood and then on, he was in the New Iberia area, South Louisiana area.
All right. Once again, we want to thank everyone for coming out and listening to us. Okay. So we'd like to thank, if you are interested in becoming a part of the Bunk Johnson Academy, I'd just like to throw that plug out there again. Visit www.bunkjohnsonbrassband, BRAZZ and go onto the Creative Arts tab and fill out the application. And we will definitely get in touch with you and let you know. We meet every Monday, once a week on Mondays. On the side of the Islands building, there's a room, and we meet every Monday from 6:30 to 7:30. So, and we're basically learning how to play jazz, learn how to play music, and just trying to keep the music alive because I think it's a dying breed. If you look in the high schools, all the schools, the music programs are not like they should be. We don't have enough students that are taking an interest. And I know why, because most of y'all go home and do this. I mean, so, we want to get you back into doing this and doing this and, playing instruments. And it's good cardio. And I like to do one more plug before we go. This is one good thing about playing a horn. And I'm gonna tell you this from my experience. Okay, if you play a horn, if you play football, you're not guaranteed to get a scholarship. But if you get one, I'm behind you 200%. You're not guaranteed to get a baseball scholarship. You're not guaranteed to get a lot of scholarships. But if you can play a horn, you can get a musician scholarship. Okay, if you go to UL, I'm just UL. I went to USL, but if you go to UL, I'm just use that as an example. If you are a member of the band, you get free room and board. You've already taken away half of your. So even if you don't want to be a musician, that's sometimes you got to take a sacrifice just to take some of that burden off your parents. And I think that's a good burden. You take half of your stuff is going to be room and board, half of your tuition. So that's a good way to get some of that taken off. Then if you play in ensembles, when I was in college, I played in the jazz band, the concert band, the orchestra, the marching band. I played in all those different ensembles. And guess what? After that first year, I was able to buy a car. It wasn't a new car, but it was a vehicle. So there are perks for being in the band. Oh yeah, definitely. You can also do gigs on the side, and they definitely pay you. So definitely. But I just like to throw that out. So I'm pro music because I think that's one thing that really most of the musicians that I've dealt with from when I was a band director. I was a band director for 14 years. Most of those musicians really did well in life because you're taught discipline. To be a musician, you have to be disciplined. You're taught to work together with others because it's not one person. When you go to a concert festival, everyone's being judged off what the collective group does. So it teaches you a lot of things. And it also helps with your math skills because it triggers something up in your brain and it helps with math skills. And, there's a lot of things. And I can go on and on about the importance of music, but we are out of time. I know that, that you have another session to go to, and I don't want to keep you. I'm actually 3 minutes over right now, but I just like to throw that out there. So if you are interested in playing music, get into it. It's never too late. And of course, if you're not a student, but it's never too late. In music, it's the heart and soul, and it drives everyone. So once again, I want to thank you guys for being attentive and being a great audience. I think you did an awesome job. So give yourselves a round of applause. We'd like to thank this great organization for having us. I definitely like to thank Judge Porter for keeping me on my toes. He always does. And, just think.
Thank you as well. Have a good evening.